What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr War Games, and today I am bringing you an update to Branded post-ban list. I'll also show you at the end of the video the combo that involves all of the new cards and Mirror Jade. I've shown it before and I've explained it before, but I kind of wanted to put it all in one video for you guys so you can see everything and how the new stuff really helps this deck, because that's what's going to give this deck the most benefit. The ban list has actually weakened all other decks. It hasn't directly strengthened this deck by giving it back some cards or changing anything like that. It just means that with the new support, the deck is definitely one of the front runners. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell and subscribe so you don't miss out on any more upcoming content. If you want to see more branded content, get this video above 50 likes and I will bring that for you. So we start off with double Albaz. I still haven't really tested in as much depth as I would like in order to justify putting this at 3 as of yet. I still feel the fusion deployment tech is working out incredibly well. Like, it catches so many people out off guard because they're like, oh, okay, they're going to go for Albaz. I'll Ash it. Or if you're going first, they're going to go for Cartesia. I'll wait and then imperm the Cartesia on the board. And it basically just gives you another form of, you know, Ash is going to come back into the format in my opinion, and they're probably, when they face some brand, they're going to save it for a branded fusion. This is where this deck can really flourish because it can actually play without branded fusion. Now, I'm not saying you're going to be taking branded fusion out, but if it does come to a point where it's like, all right, okay, well, stop your branded fusion and that's it, the deck's not really going to be that good. So you need to start adapting to be able to play around that. And that's where fusion deployment comes in. That's where Cartesia comes in and everything else like that. So we've got triple Aluba and then double Tragedy and the one ad libitum is how you actually say it, but I call it ad libitum because every time you use it, you bring back a Mirror Jade and you make Guardian Chimera and you're biting your opponent directly in the arse by popping 3 cards. Like, it's just insane. 2 Mary Courier alongside 1 Albion and the 1 Cartesia. So these are the cards that you can add that list Albaz in its text. So Mary Courier can add these 2. You've also got ways of adding them off of Branded in High Spirits, which I have put back in the deck and I'm testing at the moment. I don't know whether it's absolutely necessary with the new cards of Dust Dragon, but I quite like the idea of being able to save my Dust Dragon send for something else. So I could save it for a Garura to get a random draw. I could as well, which was a suggestion, and I'll try and put the name of the person that suggested this to me, but you could also put Shadow, App Clone, and Winder in your extra deck. So you send the App Clone off of the Dust Dragon, search out a Schism, and then you can basically Winder your opponent. But you got to keep in mind, Bystials are running around, so if Bystials hit that App Clone, you pretty much can't do that. But still really kind of cool, because I love the fact that you can Winder lock your opponent, and then it's like, okay, cool, what are you going to do now? For the Bystials, I've really changed up the ratios on this one. So we've got triple Magnamute, triple Lubellion, and double Saronir. I do also play the 1 Baldrake and the 1 Druid Swarm. Now, a lot of people have been saying to put Saronir to 3. And the way I've kind of looked at it, for the moment, as I'm testing, is I've gone with 3 Lubellion and 2 Saronir. Now, if I wanted to do it the other way around, you go 2 Lubellion, 3 Saronir. If you're on a bit of a budget, you take the Lubellions out, and you'd definitely max up the Saronirs, and then you put in a second Druid Swarm and a second Baldrake. Now, obviously, these are the aggressors. These are only good going second. Saronir is so important in this particular version because it's the one that sends you that additional branded card. So that's your branded in white to set up your branded retribution, which then allows you to regroup the Albaz fusions to get into a Mirror Jade. So the way I kind of saw it was I'd rather see a Lubellion in my hand than a Saronir. Now, obviously, in an ideal world, you want to see both. But the idea was that a Lubellion could be sent, search me out the Saronir and go from there, but Lubellion can obviously count as any of these. So if I'm going second, I can search out the Baldrake, the Druid Swarm, or if I'm going first, I can also search out the Magnamute if I've already got the Saronir. So it just gave me a couple of different variations, but that being said, once I fine-tune this deck, you can probably see Saronir go back up to 3, and you'd go 3, 3, 3, 1-on-1. But for now, this has worked out quite nicely for me. I still want to test it in a bit more depth and detail just to kind of find out if I feel that, like, in more testing and physical play, if Saronir at 3 is too much or is the right number. And then the last card I've got is the card that I feel is definitely going to come back into this format, and that is Ash Blossom. I feel that, especially with tier now no longer a thing, or less of a thing, Ash Blossom can be really important. So against Kashtiras, ashing stuff like the Shangri-La, ashing stuff like the Fenrir can be really important. Not to mention as well, you've also got to keep in mind that there's triple tactic Frost running around, so you've got to be careful with your Bystials and dropping that on your opponent, because then that means they can add any spell in their entire deck to their hand, which is something you do not want to be happening. So you do need to play a little bit differently, and Ash Blossom will definitely see its playback, considering there's going to be a lot of hype around Branded right now. It's definitely going to be one of the top contenders in my opinion. because it's one of the very few decks that they don't care if you play lights and darks. Because they play lights and darks that will trigger the effect, you're going to be in a good stead. And there'll be a lot of mirror matches where the Bystials will use double effectiveness. Just as a note, never try and Bystial a Merry Courier or a Tragedy unless they've already used their effects, because then they'll just get the effects again. So that's it for the monster lineup. Like you see, it's kind of like a relatively even split between the branded Despia cards and the Bystial cards. Yes, I know everything is now spiking in price for this deck. If you don't have the Bystials, you probably need to adapt the build a little bit more, because I feel the Bystials really add just a different depth and different level to this deck. Triple Branded Fusion alongside Triple Opening. Like I've said before in my test stand videos and everything, always activate this in the draw phase where you can, because that will allow you to play around stuff like Veilers and Drolls and everything else, because it happens during the draw phase. The Aluba searches out in the draw phase, and both Droll and Veiler are always during the main phase. So it would straight away pull out an Ash, an Imperm, anything like that they want to stop you getting to. 2 Fusion Deployment, really like this card. I think, like I said, obviously if you open up multiples it sucks, which is why I'm not playing it at 3. But when you're rocking and rolling with 2 of it, it just works out so well. Going first, it's an extender to get you into an Albaz, should it get banished from the graveyard with a Bystial, or it's also a way to get into a Cartesia to then unlock additional fusion plays on the board if your route to her was stopped. Going second, it's incredibly powerful to break boards, because straight away you can activate Fusion Deployment, and let's take a Kashtira board as an example. What you can do is you can activate Fusion Deployment, so you're not going to be triggering the Fenrir or anything like that. Summon out your Albaz, trigger Albaz's effect discarding as cost, and let's say they've got a Shangri-La, a Darkest Diablos, let's just go with that as well, because then they would have taken away 1 Mirror Jade, which you're playing 2 of anyway, and then they've got a Fenrir that they've summoned during the standby phase, and a Rise Heart. So what you do is you summon out your Albaz, you use Albaz's effect to contact fuse with the Rise Heart. That will then allow you to go into Mirror Jade. In response to that, because you used Albaz's effect, they're probably going to respond with Fenrir in order to try and banish the Mirror Jade. You then chain Mirror Jade's effect to send as cost, now that a Rise Heart is no longer on the board, an Albion from your extra deck to the graveyard to banish the Shangri-La. You would have unlocked all of your zones as well, because you would have banished that Shangri-La and got rid of that nice and easily. So you still have 3 more cards to play with. That's a Fusion, Branded Fusion. That could be a Branded Opening. That could be absolutely anything you want. So that is why, in my opinion, Fusion Deployment is so good. We've then got double Branding High Spirits. I'm not 100% set on this right now. In my previous build, I wasn't playing this. In this build, I've tried to trial it out. I still like the idea of Construct, reveal Tragedy in the hand, and then get double effects. But for now, the idea is you're going to reveal a Bystial in the hand. You then reveal an Albion in the extra deck, or an Alba, Lenatus. And then you search out the Albion Dragon. The reason of doing that is it actually means that you will +2 draws, rather than negging a draw. And what I mean by that is when you see the combo at the end, the idea is that Dust Dragon will send the Albion from the main deck to the graveyard, and then you use its effect to send the Retribution in order to add back the Branded in White from the Saronir. Whereas if you add Branded in High Spirits into that kind of combo, what that will allow you to do is it means Dust Dragon can send the Garura to draw 1 card, and then your Branded in High Spirits will search out the Albion to send and then draw another card. So you've drawn 2 cards, rather than flooded the graveyard. So it does require a little bit more, but it does work out quite nicely. So it's entirely up to you. It's at 42 cards, but this is the one that's kind of teetering on the edge of keep it or get rid of it. Then of course we've got the 1 Branded in White, that is for the combo. I don't like the amount of 1 of slight bricks you play, because you need to have setups, and it's not something you want to see in your hand, but it's just one of them ones where the combo just gets so much stronger if the combo does resolve correctly. Branded Lost, I still really rate this card. Branded Regained, I also rate that card as well. And the Branded in Red. Now, this is going to be a little bit tricky, because in the mirror matches, personally, you might consider taking this out, because the more experienced players would save their Bystial or anything like that for your Branded in Red. Because as soon as you activate Branded in Red and target, they're going to go Bystial to banish it, and your Branded in Red fizzles massively. Also, the same can be said for your Branded Banishment as well. But they're just ways to kind of out certain boards and get you into your Guardian Chimeras, your Ad Libitum, and everything else like that. Then got the one branded Beast alongside the Retribution and the Sword. Now again, I know a lot of people are like, they still don't like Sword, and I understand it. The new combo is Retribution, but then there's also a way it was like, if I've already got Retribution, or I've got a way to get Retribution or Sword to the graveyard, I actually plus even more, because I can banish Sword to add the Merry Courier back that's been banished off the back of a Saranir. That's also searched me out of Cartesia, so I now have a negate for a Nibiru or anything else that might be coming back into the format. And then obviously I've got Retribution as well that can then be banished to add me back the Branded in White, a Branded Fusion, anything like that. So it's kind of taken into account a lot of different variables. Yes, there are a lot of one-offs, and that's what I'm saying. So like, when you look at the one-offs, you could argue that either Sword or Retribution, probably more Sword than Retribution. Banishment is a questionable card right now alongside Branded in Red. It depends if you're going to swap those out though. Because if you were to swap these out, that's probably going to be your Ido, and it's going to be the, I believe it's the Expulsion. So the other card that gives you, basically board locks your opponent. So let's say Ra's Disciple, for example. And the reason that's so important is because not a lot of people are going to be able to activate droplets. So it's going to be a lot harder to get rid of that Ido, especially if you're going to be playing like Rise Hot. Anyway, moving on to the extra deck. I'm going to speed through this because this is all standard on this one. So double Mirror Jade, one Rimbrum, one Dust Dragon, one Albion Artis, two Albion. Now I play 2 and a 1. A lot of people will just play 3 Albion, completely fine. I just, you know, Starlight Flexion, why not? 2 Lubellion, 1 Quinteris, 1 Priscillian. I'm literally, the only reason this is in here is because of Dust Dragon's second effect. A lot of people will not even know that Dust Dragon has a second effect. So the first time you resolve that on that person and get the Priscillian out, it's golden. Like, the fact you can cheat this out is insane. Obviously, once people become used to it and people start playing around the second effect of Dust Dragon and everything else, then you cut it. That's completely up to you. There's a little bit of flex room in here, but everything else is pretty standard. You know, like your Masquerade Dragons, your Garura, and your Chimera. Now, obviously, if you cut the Branded in Red and you're not going to be playing the Patchwork Engine or anything like that, Guardian Chimera is a flex spot, your Priscillian's a flex spot, and then arguably, depending on what you want off your Dust Dragon, your Garura could be a flex spot. Chances are, when your opponent looks at your extra deck with Unicorn, or even Darkest Diablos, they're probably going to get rid of the Chimera first, because there's no point in hitting a Mirror Jade. You've got 2 to play around with anyway. They might hit a Dust Dragon, they might hit a Rimbrum, but then again, even if they do that, you still have alternative routes in order to kind of make, like, play around them. It's not the end of the world. So, unless you're really, really worried about cash tiers and you wanted to double up on everything, if you wanted to double up on everything, then the way I would do it is you'd go 2, 4, 6, at the very least, 8, 10, 12, and then the final 3 spots would be probably a double or a triple, or like a double of one of these, probably not the Albion Artis, probably triple up the Albion, and then you would double in like 2 cards that could be sent off of your Dust Dragon, or 2 cards that could be summoned off your Dust Dragon. So you probably go Quinteris and Garura, or 2 Quinteris, anything like that. But that's only if you're really, really worried about the cash tier matchup. Anyway, I'm going to zoom out. I'll show you the combo, just so you kind of have an idea with it and then adapt it. But the idea is, with a deck like this, if you build it, you play it, you test it, you'll learn more. So, I'm going to reset the board state and we'll come back with the combo. Okay, so the godly combo is a Aluba plus Bystial Lubellion with a discard. So when you're looking at your hand of 5, you've also got 2 more cards that can be replacements for everything else. So the replacement for Aluba could be a Branded Opening. A replacement for the Lubellion can be a direct Saranir. It won't be as strong of an inboard, but it'll still be very, very good. And the discard can be anything. So pretty standard on this one. You're going to normal summon your Aluba, you're going to use Luba's effect, and of course, you'd be a little bit silly if you didn't search yourself out a Branded Fusion, unless you've already got it. You can also activate the Lubellion. Lubellion will then search you out a Saranir. Now, obviously, this hand gets a little bit better if you've already opened up Saranir. You've got the ability of a Magnemute, and you can bounce the Magnemute back to your hand, meaning you're going to have like double the amount of Bystials, and you'd get a Bystial in the end phase. But we're going to go very direct and very, very simple. You're going to activate the Branded Fusion. The Branded Fusion is going to send you a Merry Courier and, of course, Fawn of Albaz from the deck. Now, there are a couple of like weak spots in here. Obviously, there's Ashes, there's Imperm targets, there is Nibiru places as well. But again, it all depends on what else you have in your hand in order to protect or play around stuff like that. It does make me want to consider Despian Tragedy, but not Tragedy, Comedy, but that's not the greatest option. So now for here, what you're going to do is you're going to use the Saranir's effect. This is going to target to banish the Merry Courier. Obviously, if they banish your Mary Courier, you'll still get the search for the Cartesia, but you won't get the Summon of Saranir, which will lead you to the Foolish Burial from the Saranir. So off of the Mary Courier, unless you've already opened up the Cartesia or the Albion Dragon, you're going to search out the Cartesia. It's like the best one you want to be going for. It's entirely up to you. You can do it now, you can do it later. It really doesn't make too much of a difference whether you want to special the Blazing Cartesia and then fuse now, or if you want to do the Lubellion first. It depends if you want to try and bait out. So you Lubellion, send the Saranir. You'll trigger the effect of the Saranir to Foolish Burial. Now on this one, you want to Foolish Burial the branded in white. You could also send the Retribution. Again, if you've already got the Retribution to the graveyard, or you've got it as your discard in the hand, or anything like that, your other targets you want to be sending are Sword or Retribution. So you've got 3 targets to be sending with that, and you're good to rock and roll. I'm then going to use the Lubellion effect just to deck fin that a little bit more, and to guarantee that I won't draw this at a later point, and I'll have exactly what I want. I'm going to go for Beast. Now again, if you've already got Beast, the other option you can go for is Regained. Regained you probably want to do a little bit earlier so that the Mary Courier doesn't get, so you can spin the Mary Courier back. Whereas the Lost as well will also search you out the Albion. So the Lost will give you a route to get to Albion without using Mirror Jade's effect this turn, and it will get you a random draw. The Beast is probably the stronger option as more form of disruption. So you're going to special summon down the Cartesia because you still have an Albaz in the graveyard. Obviously that's where it gets a little bit tricky, is Albaz get banished, your Cartesia is pretty dead. But then at that point, that's probably where you might want to use Mary Courier to search you out the Albion Dragon. So a lot of if, buts and maybes. So you're then going to use Cartesia's effect. You're going to fuse herself with the Albion, and you're going to go into your Dusk Dragon. You're then going to use Dusk Dragon's effect on summon. This will allow you to Foolish Burial from your extra deck or the main deck. Like I've said, if you've already got access to the Retribution play to get your branded in white back, then you can actually send from your extra deck the Albion, but you still get the same outcome regardless. So we're going to send the Albion Dragon from the main deck. That is then going to allow us to use its effect to Foolish Burial the branded Retribution from the deck to the graveyard. And then we're going to put it back to the bottom of the deck. You'll then use the effect of Retribution to banish this. This is where DD Crow can be pretty funny, and add the branded in white back to the hand. You're then going to activate the branded in white, and in doing so, you're going to banish your Bystial, Saranir, and your Albaz. Leave the Albion in the graveyard, the Aluber in the graveyard for a branded in red play, but also leave it in there in case they destroy one of your fusion monsters, you can bring it back. The only downside of your Albaz basically not being in the graveyard anymore is your loop of Cartesia is a little bit more difficult to consistently resolve, and off the back of that as well, your Rimbrung's second effect is not really live as of yet. Anyway, so you resolve the branded in white, and of course we're going to go directly into the Lubellion. You're going to use Lubellion's effect to discard that random card, and that is going to allow you to spin back the Lubellion and spin back the Albaz into the main deck to summon you out your Mirror Jade. Now, usually at this point you could stop, but you've got 2 more cards left in hand. Why? And then you're going to add back a Cartesia in the end phase. Like, we can go for more. So this is the loop that a lot of people didn't know, including myself, until it was pointed out. So thank you very much for that one. It's always nice learning this deck. So you activate Mirror Jade's effect. You send as cost an Albion from your extra deck to the graveyard. You chain the Rimbrum effect to negate the Mirror Jade. You do not have to bounce a card. Bouncing a card is optional. So what this has successfully done is it has negated the Mirror Jade, meaning that its lock-on effect that it cannot be activated the next turn is also negated, so that is now alive for the next turn. And we've been able to put an Albion in the graveyard to make sure we can resolve that in the end phase. Now, obviously, this is where if you've been able to have a Magnamute in your remaining 2 cards in your hand, you could have put the Magnamute to the board, use this effect to search, and then you actually resolve the Rimburn effect to return that Magnamute back to the hand. And that would mean that in the end phase, you would search off the Magnamute and get yourself like a Druidworm or a Baldrake. You'd also have the Magnamute in the hand as well. Anyway, with what we've currently done here, we'll move to the end phase. We'll use the effects in the graveyard. So we'll add the Blazing Cartesia back to our hand, and we'll resolve the Albion Dragon. Now, as it currently stands, you probably go for something like a branded in red, but you could also go for something a little bit more. You could go for Retribution if you haven't already used that. You could go for the branded Expulsion if you wanted to play the Ido Lock route. I just don't like the idea of having to send like Ra's Disciple. I really like the idea of sending the Mary Courier with Albaz. And your branding red is going to be live because you do have an Aluba target in the graveyard, which is really, really important. The other one is your branded banishment option, and this is if you don't have the Despia in the graveyard, but you do have a successfully summoned level 8 or higher. Level 8 or higher fusion monster. So it's entirely up to you on which you feel is going to be more effective against your opponent. Heck, you could even just add a branded fusion if you're going to cut this or not even use this. But your end build is as follows. You've got a Rimbrum. When your opponent activates a Link Fusion, or when a Link Fusion Synchro XYZ monster activates its effect, you can negate it and then bounce a card. You've got Mirror Jade that can send as well to give you a follow-up for the next turn. You've got Beast that can pop the Lubellion, and the Lubellion, of course, will then loop itself back into the graveyard. You've got the second effect of the Rimbrum if you get a Fallen of Albaz to the graveyard. And then, of course, you've got the second effect of the Dust Dragon in order to bring you out or cheese you out a Quinteris if you're in danger, or, of course, a Preskylian to kind of mess with your opponent that little bit more. Anyway, that is pretty much it for the profile. I've tried to go in as much depth as I possibly can with the profile and the combo. If you want to see more around this deck, then let me know. I really, really love this deck. Like this, Dark Worlds, Dark Magicians, it's just, you know, it's a lot of fun when a deck like this comes back into the... I mean, obviously I know it's been floating around the meta, but now that it's going to be one of the unrivaled, like, going forward, it's going to be like this, Sword Soul, Kashtiras, and then some road decks as well, stuff like Labyrinths and everything else. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe and, of course, happy dueling.